Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about pros and cons for the Black Forest area. All right, so like I said, today Sam and I are going to talk to you guys about the pros and cons of living in the Black Forest area just northeast of Colorado Springs. Before we get into that, let me, as always, invite you guys to subscribe to our channel, hit the little bell so you get all the notifications whenever we post a new video. Our channel is all about everything Colorado Springs and the greater Pikes Peak area, so where to eat, work, live, play, wherever it is. So maybe if you're thinking about coming this way for a visit, or maybe you're thinking about a potential move this direction, like I said, take the time to subscribe to the channel so you get all the information so that you have the best info to make a good decision if you think about heading this way. And along those lines also, if you are going to head this way, that's what we do is we help people find housing whenever they get here to the Colorado Springs area. It's what we do every day. We're a real estate sales brokerage team. So if you have any questions about that, a good part of town you might want to live in, or just any questions at all, please reach out to us. Whatever we can do to help out, call, text, email, that's what we're here for. We just want to make sure you guys have all the info ahead of time before you head this way. So let's get into it. Black Forest.
Yep.
Why do I want to talk about Black Forest, Sam?
You may or may not happen to live there.
I may or may not happen to live in Black Forest. So I've got a little soft spot. I'm a little bit biased, but I'll try to hide some of that bias on this video. So like I said, Black Forest, it's an area northeast of Colorado Springs. It butts right up to Colorado Springs. Yeah. Technically part of Black Forest is kind of within the city limits. Yeah. But it's not a specific town or anything. It's just a large geographic area known as Black Forest because there's a whole lot of pine trees here. A little bit higher elevation than Colorado Springs proper and a ton of pine trees. So let's just get into some pros and cons. Yeah. I'm going to go first, man. Biggest pro, and this is why my wife and I moved to Black Forest, is just the wonderful, peaceful serenity. Yes. It's outside of the hustle and bustle of Colorado Springs, but I'm about 25 to 30 minutes to downtown Colorado Springs. I'm 15 to 20 minutes from really just about anything you want to do on the north end of town. A lot of our commercial development and growth is on the far north side of Colorado Springs, Interquest and I-25 and Northgate and I-25. That area is growing like crazy, and that's about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes on a bad day from my house. So you're close to everything, but you just have this wonderful, peaceful serenity. You come home at the end of the day, you can just relax. There's no car noises. It's just quiet, and I really enjoy that. Yes. What's the flip side of that, though?
Flip side of it is definitely the drive time.
How long does it take to get up here from your house, man?
Yeah, probably a solid, if we're getting real pinpoint specific, probably about 28 minutes.
28 minutes, so about 30 minutes. So, and you're pretty close to downtown. Yeah. So that kind of jives. It is, the drive time. I think one reason it wasn't that bad for me is previously I lived in Falcon, which is a little bit east of town. Now, when I lived over on the west side of town over by Garden of the Gods, man, I was used to everything was 10 minutes away. Yep. And traffic's gotten a little bit worse, so maybe everything was 15 minutes away. Now it was 10 minutes from downtown, 15 minutes to the north side, south side, whatever it might be. Yeah. So I think it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But if you want to be like a lot of restaurants, a lot of shopping, you're kind of like in that downtown vibe, you're going to be driving 30 minutes to get to that, and you're going to be driving 15 to 20 minutes for really anything. So just to go get a carton of eggs or a gallon of milk, you're driving 15 minutes. Some people don't enjoy that. Yeah. For me, it doesn't really bother me that much. I'm out and about so much anyway. I just kind of run my errands when I'm already out and about. But drive time is definitely more than what it is if you're in town.
Well, and I guess it kind of depends too on where you're at in the Black Forest. I would say you're pretty.
That's true. That's
pretty
a good point,
central in terms of the whole region of the Black Forest.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Black Forest stretches all the way out to Elbert.
Yeah.
I even consider it almost gets out to north of Peyton over on that side too.
For sure, yeah. Peyton Pines area up in there, yeah.
And so depending on where you live in the Black Forest, it might be a 45-minute, drive to anywhere else too. I guess if you're going further north, at some point you're going to be closer to, Elizabeth or Fronttown, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
But, to get into the Springs, into the major kind of metropolitan area, if you will, it could be a 45-minute drive, but I keep telling people eventually too, everything's going to take 20, 30 minutes to get anywhere eventually.
Yeah, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
That's a really good point that you make, because when we talk about Black Forest, and we'll pop a map up here so you guys can see it, you know, Black Forest, where Sam and I are talking about kind of that Hodgen and Vollmer area, that's kind of the drive times we're talking about.
Yeah.
But you could be on the south end of Black Forest and you're right up against the Powers Corridor Woodman Road development. So you're 5 minutes from Walmart then at that point, you know, or Home Depot or whatever you want to do. So depending on where you're at in the forest, that's a really good point. You could be 5 minutes from stuff or you could be 45 minutes. It just depends on where you're at in that geographic area. So I think wherever you're at in that area, you're going to have some more kind of peaceful serenity, if you will. And also the farther you get out from Colorado Springs, it's going to be a little bit more peaceful yet, just because, you know, you're a little bit larger lots, and the lots typically are getting a little, you know, they get bigger as you get farther outside of Colorado Springs. It's bigger parcels that haven't been broken down as much yet for development. So, so I think wherever you're at in the forest, you're going to enjoy that peacefulness of it. But it is a little bit more drive time compared to being in Colorado Springs proper.
Correct.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. What's another pro of it?
Yeah. To me, and I'm sure to you, you've talked about this, it feels like you are in quintessential Colorado, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Not agree with that. Yeah.
You're outside of the city, of course. What a lot of people don't realize when they get to Colorado Springs, like you're not in ski country.
You're not in Aspen, right?
You're not in Aspen, you know, with towering mountains all around you. You got Pikes Peak and you got the Front Range, but then everything else going east from there is plains. And houses and all that sort of stuff, kind of a urban sprawl. So when you get out here to the Black Forest, it really feels like you're in quintessential Colorado. Yeah, you get the big, you're at a little bit higher elevation. You know, you're at about 74 or maybe 7,500 feet, something like that, maybe a little bit higher. Thick pine trees, rolling meadows, kind of ranch land kind of feel to it. So that's a good point. I think it feels more, I think when most people are moving to Colorado, they're not thinking about, maybe some, but you're not thinking about the downtown Colorado Springs skyline. You're kind of thinking about ski country in the West and just kind of all the stuff that Colorado stereotypically is, you know? So that's really what the Black Forest area gives you. It kind of gives you that, in my opinion, it gives you that mountain feel. Like you feel like you're in the mountains, but you're 20 minutes from Colorado Springs versus 2 hours. That's I would definitely agree with that. On the flip side of that, one of the cons that kind of goes with that is, you know, higher elevation, things like that, is the winter weather is a little bit worse. I mean, only 20 minutes away. A lot of times the weather is pretty similar, you know, 15, 20 minutes, but especially if we compare downtown Colorado Springs or the Powers Boulevard area up to the Black Forest area, you know, like you've actually mentioned that it's been a 10-degree temperature swing, you know, like where it might be 10 degrees cooler up here. It's not always that, but, you know, sometimes it can be. And snow's a big thing that I think of, you know, I'll call the team on a Tuesday and say, hey, what's it looking like? And they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's not even snowing. And we've got like 8 inches of snow. So it's just kind of really random, you know. We're kind of there's an area called the Palmer Divide, and it's Monument Hill on I-25, tops out at about 8,000 feet, maybe, I think. And it's kind of this ridge that comes east from Monument Hill through the Black Forest area, and it's just a higher ridge, like they call the Palmer Ridge, Palmer Divide area. And you're just higher elevation, and it just kind of catches weather from the south and the north. So you do get a little bit more winter weather in the Black Forest. They do a good job keeping the roads clear, which is nice. But you might get some extra exercise shoveling your driveway out a little bit. That is for sure. So literally, not exaggerating, drove up here today. It's kind of that, I guess, sort of typical spring weather where we're getting some precip during the day. Got a little bit of sunlight going on right now, maybe some more moisture later on in the day. But driving from the Springs, like patches of sunlight, no moisture whatsoever. It was 41 when I left the Springs. 28 minutes later, got to Chris's house. It was 27. And there's good 3 inches of
snow on the ground, right? Yeah.
So it's definitely no joke. And that's within a 20-minute drive. And then, you know, just talking about like the different varying topographies around here, like you said, I live at probably 300 feet. And you're closer to 74.
74, 75 probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good 1,000 feet difference between, probably almost 1,500 feet between downtown Colorado Springs and the Black Forest. But you don't really, it's not as if you're going up a mountain pass to get there. It's just this gradual upslope. So you don't really even notice it.
Yep.
But next thing you know, you're 1,000 feet higher. So,
Yep. And that definitely contributes to your weather swings for sure.
Yeah, so definitely some worse winter weather. Another pro, this probably kind of goes with the first one that I mentioned, but I'll say because it's it's big for me personally is the elbow room.
Yeah.
Like you're not buying a quarter-acre lot in Black Forest. There's some developments that have been done in Black Forest. There's Cathedral Pines, High Forest Ranch, Cherry Springs, Winsome, which is down the road from me now, is a new development. Those developments are vast. The majority of them are 2.5 acre lots. Some of them go up close to 5 acres, but mostly 2.5 acres. So when we talk about development in the Black Forest area, it's 2.5 acre lots.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the big ones being that was kind of like the smallest lot that the Colorado Water Resources Division would allow developers to put a well on. So houses up in the Black Forest, you're not on municipal or city water, you're on well water. But yeah, so you're going to be on a larger lot. And then of course parcels go up from there, right? Like there's, 5 acres is super, super popular. There's a lot of residential lots throughout Black Forest that are 5 acres. There's a few 10s. And then once you get above that, and there's not very many of them, there's 20s and 40s, but those are kind of few and far between. And then it kind of goes into larger parcels as you get farther east and north a little bit, where it's kind of, like I said, just big ranch land, still big, like 100+ acre chunks of land.
Yeah.
So some more elbow room is definitely something that you have in the Black Forest. And I think that's a big draw for a lot of people now is, just having that extra space around them.
Yeah. I mean, here at nighttime, like the only, evidence of your neighbors that I can see is like a light through the trees.
Right. Yeah. You gotta kind of look in the distance. Right.
Yeah. But even during the day, for the most part, at nighttime, like you're not hearing your neighbors, you're not seeing your neighbors. The traffic's really not that bad up here. It's very, very spacious for sure.
Spacious and just kind of feels a little bit slower pace, I guess. Maybe that's why I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But
a
big con, my friend, is that, and this has gotten exponentially worse. I tell people, and it's not joking, like thank goodness that I moved when I did, because this area has gotten exponentially more expensive over the last 4 or 5 years, probably. The last 2 years, honestly.
Yeah.
Everything in our area, kind of the Colorado Front Range, has gotten more expensive over the last few years. But I think really just there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think, during the COVID situation, a lot of people were like, man, I just kind of want to get out. I want my elbow room. I want my space. So there was more demand for Black Forest than what there had been historically. I think that was a big piece of it. I think just overall demand to the area drove the prices up.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of it too is, I don't know how many clients we've had, but clients that have wanted to move out of Colorado Springs, take advantage of the market and kind of cash out a lot of that equity, and then move into Black Forest and get on some acreage. So it's become very expensive to get into Black Forest. I don't want to, if it's an area you're interested in, 100% look into it, do your due diligence, do your research, give us a call, let us know. We'll do everything we can to answer your questions. But I will say that I think probably right at 7 figures is probably almost entry into, which sounds crazy to even say that, but I think 7 figures is probably that entry point into Black Forest. Now, if you get out way east or, where you're like 45 minutes or an hour outside of the Springs, prices, you might be able to get something less than that. But for the most part, I think that that's kind of the price point that you have to consider or just be mentally prepared for if you're looking at Black Forest. And it's gotten competitive too because of all the demand. So, it used to be if you had that, that 7-figure budget, you kind of had to pick a litter, whatever you wanted, you just go get it. And now it's, you might have multiple offers even on those properties. So there's definitely become a lot of demand, and I guess fortunately or unfortunately, whichever side of the fence you're on, it's gotten expensive for sure now.
Yeah, for sure. I would tend to agree with you, especially on the numbers part. You used to be able to get into Black Forest for $250, $300.
Right. Yeah.
5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, and it was like probably like 3 or 4 years ago. If you had a $600,000-$700,000 budget, like you get something pretty nice, probably.
Yep. People that came up here 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. You could build a really nice custom home on 5 acres plus for $600,000 or $700,000. And now I checked the MLS today. There was one listing in the Black Forest that was under $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I know which one you're talking about. It's not a nice place either.
No,
it's kind of a house that's kind of like
600.
hodgepodge together, kind of.
That geodesic one.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, it's just it's a factor of just the market in general in our area. It's a factor of what people during the COVID situation have been looking for. Just all those factors put together, I think of just really, and then, also, we talk about, because you just mentioned you could build, and now like just with, supply chain shortages, labor shortages, a lot of what you're going to find in Black Forest, they're custom homes. It's not as if a developer comes up and one builder builds 50 houses like they do if they're doing a community in town. Yeah. Here it's, an individual buys a lot, or maybe the builder already owns and they buy the lot from the builder and they contract with that builder, or they pick their own custom builder to build the house. And that number has gotten crazy expensive. We have, someone mentioned a number to me the other day that was actually close, maybe a tiny bit higher than what I had thought. They said $350 to $400 a square foot.
Yeah.
So $400 a square foot, you build a 4,000 square foot house, which is fairly common for the Black Forest area. And let me also say that in Colorado, we count like all square footage, basement and everything above grade. So sometimes I'll say 4,000, people think, oh my gosh, that's a mansion. I mean, it's a large home, don't get me wrong, but that's usually like, 1,500 in the basement, 1,500 on the main level, 1,000 up, on the upper level kind of thing. So still a large home, but not over the top. But I mean, if you do the math on that, I'm not good at math, but I think that's like 1.6 at $400 a square foot. 1,600, is that right?
Yeah.
I think that is. That's just for the house. That's before the land.
Yeah.
So new build cost, because of all these other economic issues we have, it's just all those things combined have just really drove the price up a lot. So.
And I would say too, like, most of the time land is not a scarce resource. Within the confines of the Black Forest, it is becoming a scarce resource.
Yeah, there's a big demand for lots with trees on them. So you could go out into eastern El Paso County and buy 40 acres for, I don't know, less than $100,000. But it's going to be, I say it's going to look like western Kansas, eastern Colorado. It does, right? It's just all flat land, just prairie, not a tree to be seen. But then as soon as you get into the Black Forest, and that's why another reason there's so much demand is people want to buy, they want to live in the trees and those lots. A 5-acre lot now is over $300,000 for just the lot. So all that to say, we don't need to hammer that. I don't want to be negative. It's a beautiful, wonderful place. If your budget fits it, it's an amazing place. And who knows if, numbers might change in the future. But as of right now, huge con for Black Forest is it has gotten pretty darn expensive. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's another one, man. Let's do a pro now, man.
Let's do a pro. Yeah. I do feel like it's a well-connected area. In terms of the options that you have if you live here for just picking up things or whatever the case may be, of like getting out of the Black Forest for the amenities that you need. It's well-connected.
Yeah, because you can... like physically, there's several different ways you can go to get stuff. I like that.
Yeah.
There's Falcon, Monument, Colorado Springs, all close by.
Yeah.
Whenever you first started to say that, I was thinking like well-connected, like kind of like this hoity-toity thing. I was like, I don't know. I don't think that. I don't know. I know people in Black Forest, but
Cathedral Pines.
Right. Yeah. There's some areas that are pretty fancy pants, but no. I was thinking also, the change that we've seen in the last couple of years as far as like fiber internet and things like that.
Yeah.
So when I first moved, when my wife and I built our home in Black Forest, we literally had like the T-Mobile hotspot. And this was, we were building during the pandemic. So this was, a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
So, and you couldn't go to the office, so I'm trying to work from home, and I've got this T-Mobile hotspot trying to get on the internet, tether my laptop to it. It was just terrible, man. You couldn't.
I can't tell you enough how much I could not get a hold of Chris. Chris was like, I'm staying at home today. I was like, he probably sent that text 2 hours ago.
Right, yeah.
And it's just now getting out to
Somehow it popped through, yeah. We tried to do team meeting, like Google Meet or Join Me meetings or whatever, and just...
He might as well have been conferencing me from like the other side of the world.
Exactly. Never worked at all. No. So that's been a huge change. And I think it's such a big difference too, because again, a lot of the draw is people like, they don't have to go to their office now. So drive time isn't as big of a deal. They want to kind of just have that peaceful home office feeling. But now most of Black Forest has fiber internet now. We have it in our house, so it's like gigabit speeds, like $100 a month. It's, you know, it's on par, honestly better than some parts of Colorado Springs, but at least on par with most of it. So that's been a huge change. Is just that the internet connectivity. Now you can do your Google Meets from home. You can do all the Zoom calls you want. So
even sell stuff out here, man. Like I used to,
it's gotten better. Yeah,
be able to get a bar out here, and now I get 2-3 bars of 5G.
Yeah. So I think probably put up a new tower. I think just as there's more development in the area, you know. So that's it. It may sound like a minimal thing to some people, but man, for somebody that is, you know, that works from home a lot or just works remotely, I'm always out and about. Just being able to actually get on the internet and do a Zoom call it's been life changing. So huge thing with thank you Force Broadband for that. I appreciate that little plug for you. Small company out of Monument, Colorado.
What's a con to go along with that?
Man, yeah. So I was thinking about this one earlier when we said we were going to do Black Forest pros and cons. This one is, I'm going to say no HOA, but let me explain what I mean by that, because honestly, it could be a big pro to not have an HOA, right?
Yeah.
You got an HOA, say you live in Cordero and you're paying $110 just to have somebody take your trash that normally would be $20 a month. Yeah, you can go to the gym and stuff, but most people don't do that anyway. So a lot of times we have a lot of clients that are looking for homes without an HOA, and that's getting more difficult to find in Colorado Springs. Yeah. All the newer communities, you know, 2005 and to current, they all have HOAs to kind of help manage some of those utility costs and all that stuff. So no HOA can be a positive, but this is where it can be a negative, and this is quintessential Black Forest. You might have a 40-acre parcel with a $4 million house on it, and then right adjacent to that, by their driveway, you've got a 2.5 or 5 acre lot with a single wide trailer and a lot of cars up on blocks in the front yard. It's classic Black Forest, so you got to love it or hate it, I guess. But if you're outside of some of those neighborhoods that we mentioned earlier, Cathedral Pines, High Forest Ranch, Winsome, some of those areas, Black Forest Reserve, if you're outside of those, there's no HOA in Black Forest. It's, you know, like I said, larger lots. There's no communities per se. So that can be a pretty big negative. You know, I've heard stories of people that have bought and they've built a really nice house, and then, you know, their neighbor, like the neighbor's house sells all of a sudden, and then like somebody lets it get run down, or literally they just park a whole bunch of cars in the front yard, and that can be a pretty big con. So I always like to tell people that are looking at Black Forest is that, hey, if they don't want to cut their grass, there's county zoning and ordinances, I'm sure, but they're not really coming out here too much. So that's weird neighbors and no HOA, I guess. That can be a con.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, historically, this was the area for people who said, I don't want to live in town. Yeah. There's a reason I don't want to live in town, because I don't want to be close to people.
right. I don't like people.
And I don't want any regulations on my property and all those things. And so some areas that you get into, there's nothing wrong with living in a single wide on 5 acres and having a bunch of cars. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're one of the people that wants to come out here and buy the big, beautiful, custom $3 million house, you got to be selective about the properties that you're looking at, because it can be a huge con to live outside of an HOA and have your gorgeous property adjacent to a property that's not as gorgeous.
Not quite as gorgeous. Yeah. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? So, but yeah, no, it's the last thing you want is, like, we look at it from the perspective of the last thing that we want is a client that's unhappy at the end of the day. So we're very, very cognizant about that, probably more so than, you know, the general public is. But yeah, no, it's just it's a negative for the Black Forest. You know, you kind of got to take those pros and cons together, but it is something to think about if you're thinking about coming out this way.
That's right.
Those are some pros and cons for Black Forest. Like I said, I'm a little bit biased. I absolutely love it. I think it's a wonderful spot. There's a lot of other stuff we didn't talk about. Like, there's tons of like running trails and things like that, county parks that are close by and in the forest. So there's a lot of other pros that go with that as well. There's a lot of horse properties. So if you're looking to have a horse in the local area, there's a kind of, most people head to the Black Forest area for that. So there's a lot of other pros, but again, like everywhere, there are some cons for sure. So hopefully it was helpful. If you guys are thinking about the Black Forest area, like I said, just to recap real quick, very peaceful, a little bit longer drive times. You get that true Colorado feel, but you got to kind of deal with some, a little bit worse winter weather. get that more elbow room, but that comes at a price that's more expensive. And then it's become very connected, you know, as far as things getting closer to it. And then also just that internet connectivity we talked about, but you might have some weird neighbors. So you got to think about that too. So, like I said, hopefully it was helpful. If you guys have any questions at all about Black Forest, Colorado Springs, Greater Pikes Peak area, definitely reach out. Whatever we can do to help you, call, text, email. We are here to give you all the information you need before you head this way. Everybody take care.